Hello and welcome to the third English Today Business DVD.
In this DVD, you can watch another 4 episodes of our story, On the Job, followed by the business skills section, Win-Win Language.
We'll then look at the following topics: note-taking and report writing,
Different levels of formality,
the various grammatical forms we use to talk about the future,
and the writing styles used in email communications.
Have fun and enjoy your viewing.
I've called you in today to bring you up to speed on our new cookbook series. Anne's going to take notes, from which we'll then develop a detailed outline of the work in progress, and then set the deadlines. So Gary, which authors have we contacted?
We've got in touch with Jones, Bradford, Smith, Fox, and Grant. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to contact Tchaikovsky. I think he's abroad at the moment.
What? Sorry. Could you spell that for me, please, Gary?
Certainly. Chakoswski. He's one of our Russian collaborators.
Couldn't we get in touch with Parker in his place? What do you think? He's worked with us in the past.
It's a good idea. Unfortunately, I haven't got his number.
I think I have it in my old appointment book. Let me just make a note of that so I don't forget. What's the news on the contributions so far? Have the authors started sending in material?
Yes, and I've already begun editing the first batch.
Excellent, Anne. You'll also have to take care of researching the images. When you've got those, you can send them along to the graphics department for page insertion. Let's move on to the typography. Rachel, have you seen the first batch of proofs we got from Montex today?
Yes, Mr. Stevens. Great work, I must say. It seems to me that they've done an excellent job.
Good. So it looks like we can trust them with this edition. Let's get a bid in immediately. Take note of that, Rachel.
Yes, Mr. Stevens. I'll call them as soon as we finish this meeting.
One last thing. We haven't found a title for this series. Do you have any ideas? Come on. Use your imagination. I want something original, something catchy. Nothing? Okay, then that's your first task. Do some brainstorming to come up with some ideas, and then we'll go through them together. Why the long faces? There's nothing to worry about. You're a great team. I'm sure you'll think of something interesting. Okay?
The purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the Smarty marketing campaign. Does anyone have any suggestions?
Before we move forward with the planning, I think we need to take into consideration a number of aspects of the campaign. I'm referring to the concept, the objectives, the targets, and the type of media we need to employ.
Good observation, Mr. Chang. Getting our ideas clear before we move on to the direction and score of our marketing drive is an excellent idea. What do you think, Paul?
I'm in complete agreement with you. First, we need to set our objectives for this campaign. We need to decide upon our focal points in terms of brand communication.
Could you explain what you've written on the board there? That'll help us understand where you're going with this.
Brand awareness rising will help potential clients become familiar with our products and the marketplace we're targeting. In our case, this type of campaign will serve to improve the image of Spectre in the Chinese market.
But what about focusing the campaign on the product itself?
A product campaign is generally much more focused and serves to meet different objectives. Above all, it can help communicate the unique characteristic of the product to help it stand out in its marketplace. Of course, this can eventually bring positive results to the entire line of products.
And in your opinion, what type of campaign best suits our needs?
Well, considering that the Chinese market is new for us, I'd choose a campaign focusing on brand awareness with a simple but effective message, such as our company provides sporting goods with a high-tech edge, and then follow up with a successive campaign focusing on the smartie.
Are there any comments on Paul's proposal?
I'm in complete agreement with him.
Great. Would you like to add anything, Paul?
Not for the moment.
Well, if there are no objections, I'd like to move forward on this. Our next step is to contact a marketing agency. Could you take care of that, Paul?
Certainly, Victoria.
Well, if there's nothing else, I really need to get going. Oh my goodness, look at the time.
You're always busy, aren't you, Mrs. Lee? I think you work too much.
Well, actually, I need to go to my son's school play. I promised him that I wouldn't miss it for anything in the world.
Well, then get a move on. Children always come before business.
What are we doing now?
Let's go for lunch.
Good, so there you saw two different meetings. And now let's talk about report writing after meetings, because it is important. You have to keep a record of things that happen in meetings. But it's not easy, and people are usually very bored with writing reports. So I want to try and give you a few tips of how to improve your report writing. So let's use the screen. Now, obviously, the first thing is you have to identify the speakers, know exactly who is in the meeting and what their position or job is. Now, the second thing is to write brief summaries of the main points. Now, it's important to keep these brief. For example, Victoria's meeting. Let's think about that. Can you remember the content of that meeting? Well, we could say that the main points were, number one, brainstorming on the Smartie marketing campaign. That was the general activity at the beginning. So the first thing was brainstorming on the Smartie marketing campaign. Then the next important thing was setting objectives for the future steps. The third thing they talked about was the brand awareness of the campaign for China. That's the third most important thing. And then after, the future plan was contacting the marketing agency. So from that meeting, there were 4 main points to be recorded. Now, try to remember to keep your notes concise so that people can read them quickly. You don't want to have to read pages and pages of reports. There's no time, all right? Keep it concise. Then try to highlight, and this is very important, highlight the decisions made and the conclusions, because that's more important than saying what has been said. We want to know the conclusions, we want to know the decisions taking. And another important thing, probably the most important thing, is the action that is going to have to be taken in the future. So what are the actions to be taken, all right? Then, immediately after the meeting, try and write up your notes as soon as possible, because otherwise you tend to forget, all right? So as soon as possible. Fantastic. Now, how do we organize the report? What's the layout like? Well, it's really quite simple. You have an introduction where you state the relevant old business and also the new business. So that could be your introduction. Then in the main part, you specify the main discussion points of the meeting, as we mentioned before. And then in the conclusion, in the summary, you talk about the decisions and about the actions. So that would be an efficient report, not too long, the most important decisions, the most important conclusions and actions for the future. All right? Now, often in reports, we abbreviate language to make, again, the report shorter. And I want to look at some of those common abbreviations with you now. Look at the screen. E.g. means, for example. I.e. means that is. E.t.c., very common, is etc. C.f means compare. C or CA means about or approximately. NB means note, take note of this. Approximately. DEPT is department. Which is EXCL, means excluding. IMP dot is important. INCL means including. LTD is limited, often to describe companies. NO is number. P or PP is page or pages. Probs, P-O-R-B-S, probs, problems. RE, with reference to or concerning. REF is reference, just reference. V dot is very, and S/T is something. Now, these are very, very common abbreviations, and you can use them freely in your reports. It shortens the task. All right, so remember, when you're writing reports, keep it short, keep it concise and to the point. Concentrate on the decisions taken, the conclusions, and the plans for future actions. All right? Well, thank you very much, and we'll meet again in the next lesson. Bye.
Hello and welcome back to Business Talk.
Our topic for the next 2 programs is win-win language, the language that allows all parties of a conversation to feel like winners, whether the conversation is business-related or not.
Eric and I will be demonstrating how the use of win-win language in an argument, a negotiation, or even an informal chat can ensure that both speakers involved come away satisfied.
Today, we'll be focusing on the language of argument. And next time, we'll look at the language of negotiation and small talk. So, how can we present an argument in the best possible way?
Win-win language is the answer. When you make a business proposal or a request, you win your case. And this is the important part. You make the other party feel that they've won too. You both win. Hence the name win-win.
Now, listen to Lucy carefully asking for an increase in an advertising budget. Afterwards, we'll consider if we'd accept her request.